Hi, and welcome to Beyond the First Response. This is Christy Lister, and I'm here with my co-host, Robyn Michael, and our special guest, Bob Barc. How are you today?
Not bad. Not bad. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. We're excited to have you. So many things to talk about, right?
Yeah, let's dive right in.
Well, first, we're going to do our icebreaker. Now, normally this is where Robyn would take over, but you know, sometimes we get crazy days, and so I'm going to do it today. And actually, when I was searching, I was like, holy macaroni, there is more than I ever realized here. So
just in general on the internet, there's more than you realized, or like,
yeah. Is it all true on the internet? I think I heard it's all true if you read it on the internet.
If it's on the internet, it's true.
Yeah. Especially Google.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And especially if you are a child, it's all true. So two things you have to pick from, Bob. Okay. Ice cream cone building or Elvis Museum?
Ice cream cone building or Elvis Museum? Being a music nerd, let's go Elvis Museum.
All right. That is in Woodlawn, Illinois. I had no idea.
Yeah, I did not know that either.
No, nor did I know the ice cream cone building was in East Peoria. And I've been in, Peoria a million times, and I had no idea. It was like a list of so many towns in Illinois. Actually, that's the one good thing Illinois is for, I guess, these roadside attractions.
So, but the Elvis Museum, right? It's
not the one in Memphis.
Yeah, not Graceland.
Not Graceland. But I thought he was born in Mississippi or something, like further south.
He was.
It's probably some super fan that has like a room in their house. Are you sure this is
right? I am looking at
internet.
It's on the internet, so it's real.
Okay.
Elvis. I'm looking it up as we speak. Museum. If I can spell.
While Christy's doing that, Bob, your sound is a little bit low. I don't know if you can get closer to the mic at all.
All right, let's try that. How's that?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, are you ready?
Okay.
Open since 2004. This Elvis Museum is the personal collection of a Clarence Scarrett, who is in his 60s and has been collecting Elvis-bilia all his life. So you're right. Super fan.
Yeah.
Super fan. There's something always, right?
Not go to that museum alone. Just saying.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? I'm going to go on a limb here. It's probably in his mom's basement.
That's what I'm picturing in my head.
Yes. And he has to follow behind you because it's only nice to let the guests go first. As you hear the door lock and the chains.
Now you can't leave.
Right? Sorry, Clarence.
What do you mean?
Puts the lotion on its skin.
On that note.
Anyway, okay. So, other than creepy museums and basements,
yeah. I mean, we're off to a great start already. So.
Right? Nothing like being real. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
We are excited to have you. I met you. I don't even know what month that was. Was that February?
February seems about right.
I think. Yeah. At a peer support symposium. And it was amazing. Your passion for what you're doing at your department and is huge. As we know, we all need to have that. And you can have that and still have fun, of course, right? That's how you get through. Do you want to go ahead and tell me a little bit about what you do in your department?
Well, a little bit about me. I've been a firefighter for about 17 years. I've been a paramedic for 15 years. With my current department, I've been there about 9 years, and there, I'm pretty involved throughout the department itself. Um, I run the child safety seat inspection program. Um, Actually, I'm going through fire investigation class right now. So if there's a fire in town, I can investigate it, determine the origin and cause, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, on the, Also, I run the our peer support program, which I got to tell you, the amount of buy-in that we have there is huge. It's huge.
That's great.
I think a lot of the guys see the benefits of it. Uh, Actually, just last month, I put on a drill for the whole department, and based off that drill, I said, we're always looking for more members. And so far, just from the 3-day drill, I have about 9 guys that want to be peer supporters, go go through the training and everything on top of the 7 guys that we already have. Now, in a department that has just under 100 members, you know,
That's
you look at
huge.
Yeah.
the ratio of that is huge.
That's great.
So, uh, now then on the outside of the department, I'm also involved within the union with our local. I'm on our executive board. Um, I help out with our fundraisers. Basically, we have a golf outing every year, and that supports one of the local charities that we have in town. It's probably one of the biggest fundraisers in the area. Um, we also, let's see, I'm also on the political action committee. I'm the treasurer for that. And side note, I'm also kind of working on my own little fundraiser that's probably going to be taking place in August. We're going to be raising money for another local charity in town. So just a little busy.
Just a little bit. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So-
One more thing I forgot to mention. I'm also on the honor guard. So,
Oh, that's a huge thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't realize that
what's that?
you're on the honor guard too.
Yeah. So I got hired 2013. When I got off probation, it was 2014. So 2015, I was inducted in St. Charles.
That is cool.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And again, we always go back to this, although I think there are police departments coming around. I know I always speak up of Joliet. I was just there talking last week, and they are very proactive. But fire seems to be a little bit more proactive than police still.
Mhm.
It's a work in progress, of course.
Well-
I know you refer to as everything is decided at the table in the firehouse. We had that conversation before.
100%.
And do you think that makes it easier? And I know Robyn and I have talked about this with other guests as well. Do you think that makes it easier to open up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think if you just look at the overall situation, I think is the word to use, just because, like, obviously firefighters, we all work as a team. Police officers, when they need to, they work as a team as well. There's no denying that. But, it's, they have like a little break room that they can kind of like congregate at, but then it's like back out on the road they go. Where, fire departments, you come back, if it is a bad call, yeah, you throw a pot of coffee on, you sit down at the table, and you just kind of like air it out. So I wish the police officers did have more of an opportunity, to have the same, I don't want to say resources, but if they're able to take part in something like that. I know we have a lot of like newer cops in our town. So we're not seeing like the old, I don't want to say the old timers, but you know, when before they started retiring, the guys before these guys, they would always come around the firehouse, sit down, you know, join us for a plate of food or something like that. You know, we're not seeing that anymore. And it's something that, you know, they're just, I don't know if they're not comfortable with, but I know I always try to invite them back to the firehouse, you know, especially if it's after a bad call or something, you know.
Absolutely.
They were there too. I mean, you know, it's, if this might help them, even just an iota.
Do they have an opportunity as, sorry to cut you off.
No.
Police officers, once they have a bad call, is there a break that they take, or do they just continue on with their shift? And this is more just me,
Yeah, no, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I do not know what their policies are, if they do get time to mentally recoup or not.
Mhm.
I know.
Christy, do you know?
I have an idea. Some departments do have debriefings, usually within 72 hours, critical incident debriefings. They're not all
Right
required.
after.
But right after, no, I know that a lot of them will sit there and meet, you know, once the dust has settled on that call. Some departments, they'll reach out to each other, they'll go and sit and talk. You know, they'll find a spot and sit and talk. But I don't think that the majority do that on a regular basis.
Okay.
And I think it should be required right away. You know,
Yeah.
if that's when somebody hops in the car with one of those officers, a counselor that are trained to do that, and they ride along, because that's kind of their kitchen table, right? Their squad car is their kitchen table. And if you bring somebody into their kitchen, they're going to talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I know, speaking from experience, the last couple of calls that we've had that were rather unpleasant, if you will. So the way that we have it is, if there is a bad call, our public information officer, our public liaison, he's kind of my go-to if for the peer support. He will notify the chief, and you know, the chief is pretty cool. You know, so this last incident's like, if whoever needs to go home,
Mm-hmm.
you can go home.
Yeah.
No questions asked. We'll fill your spot. We'll hire back overtime. But if you need to go home, go home. And
Do you think that so I know with my husband, it was the same thing with his department. That's probably a policy, I would think, within most departments. And the thing is that he would say is that most of the people would decline going home because they didn't want to be perceived as weak.
you know what? I mean, maybe in the older, saltier guys.
Yeah,
You know,
I know that term
guys
gets
that are-
used a lot, salty.
Yeah.
I love it.
And usually not sweet and salty.
No. But the ones that are a lot more hard-headed, those are the ones that you really have to, you know, let them know that it's okay to not be okay. Those guys. Because like you said, they come from an era where they will be perceived, or they think they'll be perceived as
Right.
being weak. But you just have to get past that stigma.
Yep.
But so in relation to this last incident, there's one guy that was not doing too well. And, you know, he said, he has kids as well. And it was a pediatric arrest.
Mhm.
And he's like, I don't want to go home because my kids are there.
Mm.
And I think that would put me into a worse place. So I would rather stay here and be with you guys. And so we even said, okay, if you want, you could stay here for the rest of the shift, not work. We'll still hire back. That way you're still around the guys.
Yeah.
He's like, no, I'm good. But if I start realizing that I'm not, I will let you know.
But do you think he would realize that he's not?
Him, 100%.
Okay.
I can confidently say that just because I've known him for so long. Him and I came up through the fire academy together. We got hired 6 months apart, not even. So, and we're also on the same crew. You know, it's, yes, I can 100% tell you. So,
Do you know if he ever at any point processed that call by either talking it out with somebody, or did he just compartmentalize it and move about?
so the way that we do things at work is if you have a critical incident, we'll get a peer supporter or something in contact with the entire crew or whoever was on the call right after, kind of touch base, you know, see how everyone's holding up and remind them that, you know, there's multiple options out there for you to use if you feel like it. You know, then personally, I will follow up with each individual a day or two later.
Good.
Because, you know, being on multiple calls like this, it really doesn't set in until a day or two later, you know,
Yeah.
the full gravity of, or the impact that this call will have.
Yeah.
And so I'll kind of touch base with them and find out how they're doing, seeing where they're at mentally. And if they need to talk, I'll listen. And then, you know, there's something also that I started doing was tracking, which anytime there is a critical incident, basically I have a journal, if you want to call it, like a spreadsheet. It's private. And basically it has each person's name, the date of the incident, and the type of incident. Now, I've been tracking this for about a year and a half now. And the thing that I've noticed, there's about 4 or 5 different names that I keep seeing popping up.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you start seeing a pattern like that, and it's like kind of the light bulb starts getting screwed in. Like, yeah, no wonder why some of these guys are struggling, you know? When you have like call after call after call where it's, you know, that's all they're seeing. So I make a note then to kind of check up with them more often. Like,
And are those your busier stations?
It, you know what? Each station has their own.
Yeah.
It's not specifically just, oh, this station's busy, so they're going to see a multitude of them.
Yeah, because
you're right. I mean, if you want to look at percentages and stuff like that, I'm sure it's there, but you know, I'm not going to discount the fact that, oh, well, this one station is busier, so they're going to see them. I'm focusing on everybody as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no sense just focusing on the busier station, you know, because it could be that there's one station that is rather slow, but it could be, they could get like the worst call.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I wonder, is it worse that it's a busy station where you have these cumulative, you know, in the city, you know, cumulative calls one after the other, or a station that doesn't normally get that type of call and all of a sudden they have a major car accident, you know?
Right. So that's kind of the reason of like, I just want to keep track for everybody's sake, not just the people at the busy house. And, you know, so we have it that, you know, originally our thought process was, well, if it's a bad call, the battalion chief will usually go on that, and then he'll run that info up the chain.
Mhm.
So, but during this last training, I said, that's great and all, but speaking specifically to like the lieutenants who are in charge of the house and even the acting lieutenants, you know, you're the eyes and ears before the battalion chief even gets there. So it could be a simple call that we go on, and it just doesn't make the criteria for the battalion chief to respond.
Yeah.
So you need to still let us know if it was a bad call that we need to follow up on.
And sometimes, you just got me thinking, it doesn't have to be a major incident that the battalion chief shows up on. It could be a situation where they go to a call and someone in the house, someone's having a heart attack, and then mom or whomever is being abusive to the firefighters, verbally abusive, or someone's filming with their cell phone and doing, quarterbacking from behind their phone, like that kind of stuff all plays into it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, it could be something as simple as that.
Yeah.
But it's that whole process. I mean, it's like I said, it really opened my eyes, but obviously, but to the point where I know what areas need to be focused on, who needs to be focused on, and stuff like that. So it's like I said, I'm trying in the whole spectrum of mental health. I'm really trying to just be a little more proactive versus just reactive.
It's fantastic.
It's funny you say that because I had a conversation. Well, some campground that I belong to, the president is a police officer, and there's a lot of knee-jerk reaction and frustrations. I mean, it's human nature, right? We're human. That's our first response, is to react. Mm-hmm. And it really got me thinking. Obviously, I know those effects for potentially what he's dealt with in the area in which he is, but it's how do you teach people to not react like that? How do you say, take a step back? Don't react based on you're annoyed or frustrated or, hurting inside. How do you teach somebody that, especially first responders?
I'd like to think that as first responders, when we go out, we all realize we have to act as professionals, and by doing so, you'd focus on what needs to get done right then and there. And by doing that, you could probably have the most positive effect or on the outcome of the situation. And then once it's all over and done with, there's nothing wrong with putting your emotions off to the side while you deal with the situation initially.
Absolutely.
But as long as you address the emotions, that's all that's important.
Couldn't have said it better. That should be a quote. Seriously, because you're right. As a first responder, that is a skill that as you have to have. And that's not, I don't think that is something that can be trained. I think that's something that's just inside of you. That helps you become a good first responder. You have to be able to set aside that emotion. I personally would be a horrible first responder. I'm just telling you that right now. And Christy knows that. I am a hothead. I pop off. I would be fired immediately, but I would be in the news. Like, it would not be good. But to that point, like me personally, I'm processing as I go and usually having to apologize after the fact. Whereas you have to, as a first responder, you're good at that. But at some point you have to be trained when to let it go and that it's okay to let it go. And it doesn't feel good when you let it go because you do feel,
vulnerable,
bad about it sometimes. Yes. And vulnerable, it's not a good feeling.
Well, and even as family, I know that, you talk to your family a lot and you're open with your family, but even as family, it's hard for us to process things sometimes. I was struggling I was talking to a police officer's wife yesterday who I didn't know was going to be at this event I was at. Never met her. And we started talking and she said something and I'm like, oh no. And it really hit home though, because the naiveness that family takes on, whether that's to protect themselves or in my case, to protect him. You know, it was protecting him, thinking he's protecting us. But it was just so hard. And for whatever reason, that all the way home. I cried all the way home after that. And I called my friend and told her, I'm like, I just need to get this off my chest. And she just let me sit there and cry with her while I was going home. And I'm good today.
It's, and that's one of those things. It's like, it's okay. If you are wrapped up in emotion and need to cry to have a release, go for it.
Right.
And the amount of stuff that, I've been through, I have no problem saying that, there's times I'll look back on certain things that happen, just, I'll start like welling up a little bit or, stuff like that, but don't be ashamed.
Not at all.
So
Vulnerability is a strength. That's what we just have to keep telling everybody. Vulnerability is a strength. And expressing yourself, Robyn, even though you'd be fired, it's still a strength.
The place for it though.
Right. Yes, that is true.
Well, it's also just learning how to express yourself tactfully,
Yeah.
Not reacting.
Learning. It's taking me 48, going on 49 years, but I'm getting there.
that not reacting is the hardest thing to stop. Yeah. It's fun to try sometimes. And then I pat myself on the back like, woohoo, I did it that time. Yeah. Or whoops, I let that one go. Oh, well. Yeah. So when you take it home, when you go home to your family and have conversations, do they understand? Or are they the typical, we're just not going to hear it because we don't want to feel it. Let's throw it under the rug.
So it's yes and yes. And here's why. So when I first got in to being a firefighter paramedic, I was still living at home. And I'll specifically remember I was on shift at the firehouse. I think I was 28 years old or something. It was Easter morning, and we got called to the next town over for a structure fire. And we got there. It was a 3-story apartment building, and looking down overhead, it was an H-style building. So you had, 2 buildings here with a common building this way. So we pull up and we were assigned RIT. So rapid intervention team, like the worst job on the fire ground, because you basically stand there and watch everybody else go to work. So, but I will say the officer, he's a very proactive officer, and we got on scene and they're like, all right, you guys are going to be RIT. So we bring all our equipment to the front of the apartment building, and he kind of does a walk around just to see what we're dealing with. And he comes back, he's like, grab ladders. It's like, oh, okay. So I grab a ladder, the other guy grabs a ladder. He's like, we got people hanging out these weeks over here. So they're I throw a ladder, go up, get the person, bring him down. The other guy, he does the same, and we did this like 2 more times. And it was there's a famous fire in the city of Chicago. It was the Paxton Hotel fire, and that's essentially it's what there's a drill now named after it.
Okay.
Because that's what the firefighters had to do when they showed up. They had people hanging out of all these different windows, and it's just basically throwing a ladder, pulling people down, then moving the ladder over, pulling people down. And it kind of felt like that drill. So anyway, I'm getting off shift. I head home, and I'm going to my and then we're having like Easter lunch because my family's weird, not Easter dinner, but that's a whole other story. So I start telling them about this. My mom was like, I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about
We're eating dinner, not at the dinner table.
Well, it wasn't even at the dinner table. It was just like during the prep. And she's like, I don't want to hear about this. I don't want to hear about the stuff you see, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, moving on. About 8 years later, I end up getting married. My wife, initially, she worked as a paramedic. So she then pursued a career in nursing. So she's an emergency room nurse. And I cannot tell you how helpful and healthy that is.
Yeah.
Because not only do you have a person who's there who can understand and relate, but, it's a two-way street too. She'll come home from work and say, I had the worst day. Every patient I had was like legitimately sick. I was hanging blood for this guy. Meanwhile, we're working on intubating this guy. And then we had a ped come in from a car crash. Like,
yeah,
I get it.
Yeah.
I understand. So that being able to relate is just huge.
Yeah. It's like you had to live in peer support.
And that's it. It's truly helpful.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's in like the other thing is like when even if like you try to explain to your family about an emergency call that you went on, and you try like talking about exactly what you did, the guy was, he was in a Brady rhythm. So we started intubating him. The rhythm crapped out. He went to VFib. So then we start doing CPR, yada, yada, yada. You can literally talk through your whole protocol about what you did. And she's sitting there and she's just like, yeah, I get it. So what else did you do? Did you do this? Versus like, if you just have like a regular family member, well, he wasn't breathing good, so we tried sticking a tube down.
Yeah.
That whole trying to translate it.
Yeah.
And I think speaking in the terms that you use in the field also helps.
Do you think though, out of curiosity, and maybe Robyn can we kind of came from very similar situations, just fire and police, right? But do you think that if you were to have started off your career talking that way, in the verbiage that you use while out on shift, out on a call, that it would make your family would be able to relate more, or they are relating, but then they could actually understand it and support you in a different way?
I think if I were to use the verbiage while talking to my family members
now,
I feel like it would just be like kind of like the blank stares, like, oh, okay, go on. But like, they'll understand doing CPR, or maybe they'll understand the term intubate. But like, when you start talking about the intricate details of the call, like, okay, we pushed, or we hung like 150 of amiodarone or, something like that, she could still relate,
Yeah.
So I think being able to go that in depth is what makes the world a difference, because like I said, she was a paramedic. She's working in the ER, so she can definitely relate to like what drugs were given. And it's, even if she offers like some, I don't even want to say constructive criticism, but like, oh, well, did you guys ever think of this?
Some feedback.
Yeah, and you can even say, yeah, we actually discussed that, and this is why we didn't go down that road.
Yeah.
So
well, and it's having being able to have an intelligent conversation on the subject matter. And that's one thing that, as a civilian family member and civilian wife, I do look back on that and wish that, I was definitely interested. I've always kind of been like a firefighter chaser, ambulance chaser. Like, I just think it's cool.
Sure.
So, but
Badge
it wasn't.
bunny.
I am a badge bunny.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say
I did. It's
but
okay.
I am.
I was not,
Like,
never have been.
But it wasn't his first career. So I just lucked out. But I was interested, but I don't know necessarily that I gave, when he was coming and telling me about the calls, that understanding that when he was doing that, those were the times that he actually really did need an ear that was present. And I don't know that I gave that to him every time. And that's one of the tools as we're doing this podcast. And when I talk to other spouses, that is the one thing that I try to make clear to them, that if they're talking to you, you have to be present. You have to make eye contact, like just give them all the attention that you possibly can. And that's part of being a first responder spouse. It's almost like if you marry somebody from another country, you're most likely going to try to learn the language, right?
Sure.
So that you can talk to the family, and you may not ever be fluent, but you will at least be able to have some type of conversation in their native language. It's the same thing with first responders. You don't have to go to school for it, but just ask questions. If I don't know what all those things that you just said, the terminology, the acronyms, ask the questions in the beginning. And as time goes on, you'll understand it more and be able to have that intelligent conversation. It makes a world of difference, and I don't want to make it seem like you have to be married to a first responder in order to understand, because you just have to want to be present,
right?
Because that is your life. That it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle.
Right. And like I said, I am just fortunate enough that I was able to, but like you said though, in like regards to like the spouses and the wives in general, being present, that is so important. And the only thing, like, whenever I talk about peer support or whatever, being there for people, actually this class I'm in for fire investigator, because it's over 40 hours, the class they're putting on the class, they're required to teach like a resiliency course, and I was speaking with the instructor during the break, and I said, yeah, I'm highly involved with this in my department. So him and I started really talking during the break. And next thing you know, like, he's teaching it, but he's really like including me as like a side instructor. I was like, I'm supposed to be the student here, just learning. But he was at the end of the lesson, he was like, is there anything that you can offer that we really didn't touch on, or that you feel is important? And I said, there's one thing that I think is the most important thing. It's, if you're going to ask somebody how they're doing or if they're okay, don't just ask them. be prepared to listen.
Yep.
You have to be present in the moment for that to fully be effective.
Mhm.
So
I follow a group on Facebook, and I'm not going to call it out just in case they're listening, but it has to do with firefighter wives. And there was a meme that they posted recently about a funny meme about when your husband comes home off shift and they're talking about their day, and you know, the woman is just kind of staring off into space like, oh, when is this going to be over? And I so wanted to reach through the screen and like strangle them. Like, are you kidding me? This is not okay. And then the comments that were coming through of, oh yeah, I just let him talk. And like, no, you guys. And I'm not gonna be that person.
yeah,
I would have
On there,
been.
but I almost wanted to send a message like, what are you doing right now? This is so against everything that you should be doing as a spouse.
because what happens if he comes home next week or he or she comes home next week
Exactly.
and says, you know, this was like that call we had last week, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, instead of just kind of faking and be like, yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
just definitively say, yeah, I do remember, you know, you said this, you said that.
Yeah. And actually, you know what? You saying that, it reminds me that there were times that Eric would say to me, oh, remember that call I was telling you about? In my mind, I'm going, oh shit, I don't remember, you know, but I would just say, oh yeah, but you know, hindsight is 2020. I mean,
Oh,
that's just it right there. He needed me to remember.
Yeah, because obviously we don't forget either, you know.
Right.
It's the Rolodex of the mind, you know.
Yeah.
It's here, it's spinning, you know. Just because you're not talking about it away, it's still stored back there.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. And then when we come back, I would like to kind of touch base on that Rolodex and how your family can help you, you know, clear out that Rolodex sometimes. So we'll be right back. We are excited to be able to start our day with Badge Brew Coffee. Hey, Robyn, did you know that Badge Brew has a new charitable badge collab roast?
Hey, Christy, I thought I heard that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's called First Response Roast with a spicy, smooth, medium roast with flavor notes of spice cake and citrus undertone.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And if that doesn't tempt our audience, a portion of the proceeds go to First Help. Oh, and don't forget, they're first responder family owned. Whether you're on day shift, night shift, or the shift of raising your family, Badge Brew has your coffee ready and waiting.
So let me ask you, what's your badge of honor? Find out by going to badgebrewcoffee.com and order yours. If you want the first response roast, click on Charitable Badge Collab. I know I am. All right. Well, welcome back. We're here with Bob Barc, one of our local firefighters who his passion is not only his job and helping people, but also supporting his coworkers, his family, you know, his second family, some people consider it your first family. Nonetheless,
Yeah.
family.
It's family.
Where everything is decided at that dining room table.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking before we left about the Rolodex. You know, we were having that conversation that often, and I'm thinking about it, maybe family can't relate because you're afraid they won't understand in the beginning. So you don't talk that way. And then they start disconnecting or you start disconnecting, even though they're trying to engage. So what are some things, we have to call it our toolbox, but maybe it's our Rolodex. What are some things?
I don't know what a Rolodex is anymore, though. Are we starting to age ourselves?
I received one as a white elephant gift a couple of years ago, and I was super stoked about it because I'm like, oh my God, it's an antique. What's inside?
That out there. There's a millennial listening.
A Rolodex in your cell phone.
It's the contact list on your cell phone.
Yeah.
But it's your brain is a Rolodex, essentially, right? You're pushing things back. Mm-hmm. And we need to know how to bring it forward to release it. What are some things that you can teach your civilian family to help clear out your Rolodex?
I don't know if there's really a way to really clear it out, but it makes it easier by talking about it. You know, that you're not just burying stuff way, you know, under, you know, like Z or something way in the back, you know. It's there, it's there for a reason. It's just going to have to be, you know, I feel like it's like you just can't ignore the stuff that's there, because realistically, you know, you might see something and that might flip to the page that you saw something relatable 5-10 years ago.
Lost him.
And he is so into it right now. He froze.
Stuck.
Hold on. So as we are talking about relatability, sometimes we get stuck in time, right? We
Right.
freeze in that moment, not knowing how to express ourselves. So maybe this is something that we can talk about with that being sometimes it becomes difficult to talk about it. And as family, as civilian family, as we do that, what do you think are ways that we can relate or help relate?
Well, I know that as when I talked to my therapist about the day that Eric died, you know, your mind starts coming up with other scenarios. You replay it over in your head, right? One thing that he told me to do was to, in order to move that memory kind of back into a different space, into my long-term memory, instead of staying in my short-term memory and looping over and over again, is to play it out, either verbally or, you know, play the whole thing out in my head mentally. And then something about that, doing that, processing that, I guess it is processing it, moves it to your long-term memory. Now, whether or not having it be in your long-term memory is an issue too. Hey, Bob, we
Hi.
just decided to take over.
We were discussing how sometimes when you are trying to clear out that Rolodex, it freezes and you don't know what to say, and you have to walk away for a moment and come back with some proper tools.
Yeah.
I was just talking about the short-term versus long-term memory and how talking things out and processing can move some of that stuff into your long-term memory. So it's not right there in the forefront every day. My therapist talked to me about that.
Yeah. And, you know, being able to just converse about it, I
Mhm.
feel being able to address it, I
Mhm.
feel, you know, that is going to be the stepping stone to acceptance, understanding, and like dealing, you know,
Mhm.
with it. So, and then by doing that, be able to move it from or into the long term.
The database, if you will.
Yes. Hmm. But it's just like, though, you know, if it does pop up again,
Yeah,
just, you know, address it then.
right.
You know, there's no need to suppress it and put it all the way in the back.
Yeah, because eventually it's just going to, you know, the Rolodex, it's going to work its way back up to the front again.
Mm-hmm.
So, Christy,
Yeah, so with that, teaching family. So, you know, you get lost in your thought, you get lost in the vision sometimes. Giving them something of just teaching them from the beginning to talk about it. I had the class that I spoke to the new hires in Joliet last week. I love when they ask me questions, and they asked me, "How can you? Did you guys talk to your kids about what their dad did for a living?" I'm like, no. In fact, we kept them, and I talk a lot about this on a need to know basis. You need to know we love you. You need to know we care. And we did not teach them. I explained to this officer, I'm like, here's what you need to do. It's okay to let them know that that was a hard call. You can put it in age appropriate, of course, but let them know that it hurt you and get it out and talk it out in a healthy behavior in a healthy manner from the very beginning. It's going to help you. It's going to help your children. And it's teaching them that it's okay, to have these feelings. Just remember as you go on, I always refer to 5-year, but as you go on, maybe doing that at home, they're going to be given the tools they need to have, or, cards in that Rolodex for you, that when you come home and you need to talk or need to have somebody sit there, they can pull that card out and know that they're going to be there for you. And this is how, and this is why. And it's so refreshing to hear somebody ask that question. No one has ever asked, how do you tell your kids? So I know you have nieces and nephews. Do you have conversations with them?
Me?
Yes.
My niece is she's only 5 years old. So when she's gonna be like more age appropriate, more understanding. Yeah. I don't know if you hear my dog barking. I think the mail's here. So no, and you know what? And her dad, my sister's husband, he is a police officer as well in the near Chicago burbs, and he knows how important like mental health is to me, and I'd like to think that if he could just take a page from my book and kind of like use it in his life, which don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he isn't, but just I as like a crutch to fall back on kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm always going to be here. I'll be there to support them. However, so if he needs ideas or help, talking about, I am there. So.
Do you feel like because he is closer to you that he wouldn't reach out to you? Almost the familiarity is too close to home. And I asked that because my husband had a coworker who was struggling and actually ended up getting sent to rehab. And this was literally just a few months before he took his life, before Eric took his life. And it was really interesting because he was so supportive for this guy, to the point where I was like, wow, like you're really taking this on as your own, helping him so much. And then, of course, it was completely devastating for that friend because he had no idea, because he was too busy worrying about his own, for good reason, but that's how he felt.
No, in relation to what you're saying, it's kind of weird because sometimes stranger therapy, when I say stranger therapy, I mean like a person that you don't know, is sometimes the most helpful, because there is no judgment there to be passed,
right?
But I've had a couple cases, I don't want to say cases, but where I've talked to people from just neighboring departments in a casual setting, whether it be a convention downstate or something, but just talk to them, and it's just a simple conversation. But then like 3-4 weeks later, I'm getting a text message from a guy that I knew that retired a couple of years ago, that had a common friend that was friends with this guy, and he's like, yeah, I talked to Bob, and he really helped me. He was there for it. I didn't know that. It's like, but it's like I said, stranger therapy is always helpful, and I find that to hold up, especially like in the back of an ambulance with a patient or something, and they are struggling, whether it's drugs, alcohol, behavioral issues, anxiety, depression. There's nothing wrong with saying, listen, I know you're struggling. I don't know what you're going through. I've
Mhm.
never experienced it, but I'm here to listen.
Mhm.
If you feel like talking, granted, it's a 5-10 minute trip to the hospital, but instead of, I'll just listen.
Mhm.
But you're giving them that 5 minutes that
Yeah.
maybe that's all they actually needed and they wouldn't be in that position.
Yeah. And that's it. It's either that or you just start getting the conversation going, because like, all right, if they're willing to open up with you a little bit, when they get to the hospital and they have to talk with the doctor, maybe we'll put them at a little bit more ease, you know.
Mhm.
So, that's the way I look at it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Indifferent? I don't know, but I know that's what I like to do.
Well, everybody is human and everybody struggles at one point or the other, right? And how you deal with it and how the people in your life, even if you're only in their life for 5 to 10 minutes, that can save somebody or put somebody at ease to know that it's normal to struggle sometimes and that it's going to be okay.
Sure.
And that's huge. And that's even something I think you can bring home, any workplace, any stranger on the street. Most importantly, teaching our coworkers, right? Our family, our work family, that's what it is. And there's no judgment, just an extra 5 minutes
Mhm.
Mhm.
often de-escalates those feelings.
But I know, getting back to the question originally at hand about, would he
Mhm.
reach out? Like I said, he's involved in a lot of the same stuff that I am, with work. I know he's also on the police department's honor guard. He's on their executive board. So
Mhm.
we do have a lot of commonalities. And knowing the stuff that, I've been through over the last like year or so, and how it's affected me, but I've definitely talked to him about it.
Mhm.
He's seen it firsthand, uh, and knowing how important it is. Like, my sister knows that as well, so I think, you know she could kind of give him,
Yeah.
the spousal nudge.
Yeah.
So, um, either way, like I said, if he needs me, I'm there,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to force myself,
No,
because
that
to
never
me it's also
works.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That makes people shut off a lot of times,
mhm.
unless it's a crisis situation, obviously.
Sure,
You would
but
need
then
to.
then you're looking at a whole other group of
Yeah.
like external and deciding factors.
Right.
So, but
Yeah. And I think the stranger therapy, I like that term. I think that I could see that working definitely, and that coming into play, because a stranger doesn't have any context around you as a person, right? There's no prejudgment. There's no, well, you were doing this before, and I think that that's probably why you're feeling this way. There's none of that. They and the person struggling knows that, and this is just a fresh new face, a fresh set of ears, who's only looking at what I'm telling them right now.
yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because like I was talking with a friend last night, and she was rather upset because her son wasn't able to get off for Mother's Day,
Mhm.
and so she's all upset about it, this and that, and being friends, I was trying to, I don't want to say fix the situation, but
Yeah.
like definitely offer suggestions. You know, well, why don't you guys try doing this? Because first of all, it's not just because you don't celebrate that holiday, Mother's Day, Labor Day, Christmas, or whatever you celebrate on that specific calendar day,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's not as effective.
Yeah.
It's the people you celebrate it with.
Right.
And I told her this, and she's like, "No, I get it, but my schedule's busy, this and that." I'm like, "Well, instead of doing like a Mother's Day dinner, why don't you do a Mother's Day lunch? That way you could still celebrate,
Right.
And I noticed that I'm trying to fix.
Yeah.
Instead of just listening to her vent because she's upset, I'm trying to fix. And I kind of had to like pull myself back, because this is what she needed. She's upset. So.
You're right. She knows that she can do it at lunchtime.
Yeah.
She knows that.
Oh yeah. And she's like, she's working really hard on this diet, and, she's doing like that intermittent fasting. And she's like, well, I don't eat until 4 o'clock. I was like, well, for this one day, do you think you could break it? She's like, this is my day. It shouldn't,
Yeah.
And that's when she said, I was like, oh God, I'm trying to fix things,
Yeah.
instead of listen. So,
but at the same time, I understand that, because I'd be like, get over it. It's just intermittent fasting.
You know what though? I mean, it was, like I said, I should have just listened and been there instead of being a fixer.
But that's hard, because your job is to fix things, to be there, and solve the problem in that moment. And when you can't, that makes you, I think, feel awful inside, right? Then it's like, oh, well, and that can actually trigger things. That'll trigger things in me even sometimes. And I know Robyn and I have talked in it, and I know it goes both ways on that. And we just have to, that's that reaction, right? That knee-jerk reaction that we just have to say, oh, no, my opinion is not to be entered right now. Yeah. And then give yourself a pat on the back that it didn't happen in that moment. When you're off the phone, then you can let it out like, ugh.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is, and that's hard. And I think that is part of, for first responders in processing, and even for families, you're not there all the time. Your shift is different. You miss holidays, and your family gets upset once in a while.
And I kind of had to explain that to my mom, because, for the first couple of years I got into the fire service, well, you're going to miss Christmas. Well, Mom, it's literally a day on the calendar.
Right.
You celebrated a day earlier, the day after.
Yeah. It's when I put it into that context, she finally like, you know what? He's not wrong. So, it's like I said, we've celebrated Christmas in January just because the schedules of me being on shift, my wife working, my brother-in-law being at work with the police department, just never lined up. So we'd be celebrating Christmas, my sister's birthday, which is like New Year's Eve, my niece's birthday, which is like January 2nd. It'd be just one giant conglomerate of celebration. But like I said, it's who you're celebrating with.
Right.
And that's the most important thing.
And if that's the time you can get together, then it's Keister birthday holiday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
With some extra candles for whatever comes up after. And a sprinkle.
Yeah. Just a little sprinkle.
Yeah. Just going back to the listening thing, one thing I do want to mention, I think that's a really good lesson for anyone on a peer support team that, especially I'm used to being around firefighters, but I'm sure the same with police officers too. But you're dealing with some really, really intelligent people who have been around the block more than a few times and can see through the bullshit. So when you are on a peer support team and you're reaching out to somebody, you have to know that your job is not to fix. They can see through the bullshit. You're literally there to listen and let them process.
Yeah. Let them vent, explain how they're feeling, like, this call made me feel helpless, or, I felt like I wasn't part of the team, or, I feel we could have done better, this and that.
I get that. Yeah.
Like, and this just, yes.
Listen. Yeah.
These are all natural feelings, because like you said, our job is to fix stuff. And if the outcome didn't go the way that we didn't want it to go, we are going to constantly be second guessing ourselves.
Yeah.
What could we have done different?
Yeah.
Where did we go wrong? Did we do this enough? Did we, it's a myriad of things that you can keep asking. And just know, yeah, you probably did do the best that you did or you could, but your mind is also going a mile a minute during these stressful calls. So you may feel that you are slow and not effective, but you have to realize it's the same thing. You may not feel that you're effective because somebody had to tell you or something to do something. Well, look at a fire scene. It's the same thing. It's just, we don't get a lot of fires. So it's tough to compare, but it's no different than a lieutenant or a captain telling you, hey, go over here and do this. He sees something that needs to be done. He's telling you to go do it. Yeah. It's simple as that. It's, they're all natural thoughts to think. Yeah. And it's, the second guessing yourself thing, it's one thing, but knowing or coming to the realization that you did do the best you could,
and you're not going to see everything on that scene in that moment. It's impossible. So you can't be hard. Even though I say this, you can't be hard on yourself. I also know that we are the hardest on ourselves, and we will beat ourselves up till we're blue in the face, right?
100%.
But you can't see everything, and you're not meant to. It's humanly impossible. No matter what you're trained, it's humanly impossible.
Yeah. And, like when I first became a paramedic, the town that I was working in, it was, for the size of the town, it was a very busy town, near west suburbs of Chicago. We had a lot of fire, and we had a lot of good EMS calls. I hate saying it like good, but value, like enough where, like, as a new paramedic, I learned a lot of like what to do, what not to do, and more importantly, how to heal after. It's just, like I said, it was very valuable. So
I think that's a perfect spot on healing. We're running out of time here. So everything that you do is truly a blessing to everybody that crosses your path. So, we can't save them all. We can't have the call go perfectly every time, and we won't always be able to get through to somebody. But with that, if you can reintroduce yourself to us and then let us know something that you do to help yourself be better by Friday that we could learn from.
So reintroduce myself. My name is Bob. I'm a firefighter paramedic from the suburbs of Chicago. Now, something to help me get better by Friday. As I said in the beginning of the program, I am a huge music nerd. One might call me an audiophile. But so my outlet, my escape is music. And it's great because there are so many there's such a wide variety of music that it could always tie in and relate to what kind of mood you're in. If you're feeling down, blues. Oh God, I love the blues. Like I said, there's always music. There's music to settle your soul. And playing, I also play guitar, work on guitars, stuff like that. So having the ability to play music is such a valuable release for me that, if I just go downstairs, pick up the guitar, play, let it all out. That's my expression. That's my release. That's how I'll get better, So.
That is fantastic. Thank you. And again, we appreciate you coming on, and keep doing what you're doing because you're making a difference, one conversation at a time.
Thank you for having me. It was truly an honor to be here with you guys. I truly appreciate it.
We appreciate it as
Yeah.
well.